Greetings everyone, welcome back. It's Fleo and we have our lineup building episode for midweek competitions in game week 247. First things first, as you can see, big announcement here that the Russian League Power Hour about it. The Russian League is returning at 2200 CET. I believe that's 6 p.m. Eastern time, maybe 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Is when they're going to start auctioning off players for that league, which is a whole group of players you can dive into, and I'm very curious. I'm not sure if that falls under Asia's power leagues or the European power leagues. Let me know, because obviously a bit of Russia is in both, but most of it's like population-wise is in Europe. But let me know what you guys know beyond me. Either way, it's a nice addition there. I will talk about the creation of game week 247. So, first things first, we'll go to my teams. Now, first, we'll start with Liverpool, in which Liverpool is, or we'll start with casual, in which Liverpool is the big makeup of my list. Of course, I did pick Liverpool as my entry-level team. But one thing to acknowledge if we edit this lineup before we get into anything is that right here we can see, even used, none of my defenders have a midweek game. This guy has a game, but he did not play in his past 5. Just giving him the chance. Maybe he goes in, maybe he gets a substitution, something like that. Even if I don't even know if he's hurt. So we take it with a grain of salt. We'll see what happens. But with that being said, this officially is my lineup for the casual version of So Rare, of course. Now, a lot of, I guess, leagues don't have, or a lot of teams don't have a midweek competition. Of course, with a couple cancellations due to COVID and just a whole bunch of tournaments they play, a lot of these Premier League teams do have midweek competitions throughout. Liverpool is playing Leeds, which in my mind is a favorable matchup. Now, I do like Leeds, but I think that they're a little bit of a weaker side, especially recently. They've been playing a bit poorly. In that nature, I was deciding the only real decision I had, Alisson. It was either Alisson or his backup. I believe Alisson starting, so I'm going to start Alisson. Happy with that. Defender, we already heard about this. My midfielder, start Fabinho. He's played well for me lately. The only other option was Naby Keita, and only other options were Naby Keita and James Milner. Now we can see I started Naby Keita, so we'll dive into that in just a moment. Forwards, if we go here, we can see edit lineup. He is playing Ajax, which is obviously a tough competition. But if we go to any players here, the only other option, now of course I would love to use Moussa Dembele possibly. But the only true other option, maybe Moussa Dembele instead of Keita. But once again, as we can see, he has no game right here. So with that nature, the only one was Divock Origi. And of course, he can come in into an absolute stunner and play well, but he rarely shows up in the Liverpool lineup. So Ramos is going to get the start this week. Change nothing here. Now I set my bonus on Alisson again. It's hard to kind of bank on Fabinho or Keita scoring or do anything to propel them really high. Now, Fabinho did score 2 games ago, so maybe. But with that being said, I didn't have much of a choice until I should have stayed in there. Besides Naby Keita, who really the only other options of players that were going to join was James Milner, and they both had a showing last game. But of course, I think Naby Keita might even start this game. But I would simply, I'm happy with my decision to go with Naby Keita. It's always tough to compare midweek competition lineups simply because it's just not a lot of leagues and teams have games then. And then of course I entered my U23 lineup. Now we're currently in match week 246. So that one I'm really relying on. Maybe there's a chance I do something. Unlikely, but there's a chance. Whereas this one, the midweek, none of these guys are starting up. The MLS, where Paxton Pomykal is, I believe is how you pronounce it. We can see that the competition start the 26th, so I'm very excited about. And I will make a video possibly spending money. Now, I have spent a little bit, but no direct pathway. I think I'm going to aim for one thing specifically to go towards, and I'll dive into that in a moment. But with that being said, those are my 2 lineups today, or for match week 246. Nothing here is going to get me anything. I don't expect any rewards here. And then lastly, I just wanted to go to my teams. And can I see my mix? Yeah, so these are my 3 training teams. So, I mean, no real reasoning here. Just threw every single player in. I guess that I wasn't using that I think I could possibly use in the future, including, if you saw yesterday's video, my pack pull, Nicholas Seawald, did not have a competition for the midweek games for 246. And of course, I already set the lineups for the current weekend, so no play time for him this week, unfortunately. But in my mind, I think that's a nice boost, and we shall see how it works out in the future. But I'm glad that I learned you can submit multiple training lineups. Now, the final portion of today's video, I want to go over match 2, week 245, because I said I would do in the other video, but I felt like it was more applicable here. And leaderboards, is that where I'm trying to be? I wanted to see, because now I can compare it between like match week 245 and match week 247 are both midweek competitions. So now I can kind of see my lineups and see which ones played really well. Now, of course, Andy Robertson balled out. That's a nice one. This guy has Joshua Kimmich, Julian Alvarez, who I believe was in line to make a couple of transfers, but didn't do anything this week. Courtois, we'll say, and Castellanos. So overall, an absolutely stellar lineup out of this guy, including a Liverpool guy that I was unfortunately unable to get. He is a fullback, of course, but still, with that being said, in my mind, an unreal lineup points-wise and just everything-wise. Over 500 points, and we can see that I would need to place really well in common weeks a couple times here and there to get these star players. But I think it's something that's doable, free to play. I think it's something that you guys can do if you get lucky. This is a buildable lineup. The next, like a predictable lineup, if that makes sense. Of course, you do need to get lucky to get these players, but next we had Allison, who was this guy's weakest pull, Julian Alvarez, Andy Robertson, we see a theme here, but Fernandez, so I believe they're on the same team, yeah. Obviously, good games out of both of them. Can we see what they did? Yeah, we can. Goal, assist, and Alvarez had 3 goals. So what a performance. And then Pavard had a clearance off the line, which is obviously a nice stat right there. But once again, a brilliant lineup. And then third place had Julian Alvarez, of course. Virgil van Dijk, another Liverpool player I was unfortunate enough to pull. But still, nice little boost on him. Got the boost on Julian Alvarez, which is brilliant. Andy Robertson. And then Jung Sung Ryong, which is one of the players. Let's see how his recent form has been lately. Recent form, yeah. So this was one of the players that in recent form hadn't been playing too well, where this is more so a lucky prediction in a way. Now, if maybe you did a bit of research and knew something that I didn't. But this guy obviously played outstanding, and 83 points helped him towards that third place finish. So this was, of course, a midweek competition. There's about the same number of people that enter into midweek competitions as they do weekend competitions. But I think a lot of the people that enter into midweek competitions enter a lot of no-game players. Now, I was lucky enough during 245 to have 5 players who had a competition that I could start, whereas 247, I obviously, as we saw earlier, do not. Maybe I get top 50%, maybe I don't. I'm hoping for it, but that is today's video. And everything you can know about my free-to-play lineups. Now, of course, when you mentioned, I did pay money, and I do plan on paying money in the future, but that does not affect my casual, common, free-to-play lineups whatsoever. I'm really grinding for those, and you can follow those just as fine. You can follow other people, do as you wish. But with that being said, thank you all for watching. Have an excellent evening, morning, night, whenever watching. Peace.